CU Buffs up in Boulder. They get the job done in a win over Cincinnati 34-23 that was not actually as close as that score might indicate. The Buffs had that under control for the majority of the game. Joining us, Aniello, Piro, host of the SCO Show from My Life Sports, to talk about it. AP, obviously another exciting win for the Buffs, who have now won 5 of 6 after losing that embarrassing game to Nebraska in Lincoln. The one game they've lost, the 3-point loss to K-State, which had they won that, wow, would we be talking about something. But maybe had they not, the focus would not be the way it has looked over the last couple of games, in which the Buffs have basically taken control of the last 2 games, both in conference early, and dominated both of them basically start to finish.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I know the final score was 34-23 there, but Colorado controlled that game, it felt like, from start to finish. And I thought it was a complete effort from them. And what'd you say, 5 of 6 wins since that loss to Nebraska? I mean, they have just been much, much better. And I think, Shawn, to me, with the exception of the Kansas State loss, even though that was a tight game, they've gotten better after each and every game. You know, they just seem to improve as the season goes along. The cream rises to the top here with this Colorado Buffaloes team. I mean, Travis Hunter solidifying his case as the best player in college football. Whether he actually wins the Heisman Trophy or not, we'll see. But he's just absolutely phenomenal as a wide receiver and, of course, as a cornerback. But I thought Shedeur Sanders was great. I thought the defense was great. Shout out to our guy, DJ McKinney. He had a nice game. Cameron Silman-Craig doing his thing. And Robert Livingston, I saw this. I forget who tweeted it out or who posted it, but they made the point how this year compared to last year, Coach Prime has 2 coordinators, and Robert Livingston and Pat Shurmur, 2 guys that we kind of had some questions about, right? Because Pat Shurmur, you know, we know his history with the Broncos, and then Robert Livingston not getting hired until, you know, up against it there with the season coming up. These 2 guys are guys that believe in the Buffs, if not as much as Coach Prime, if not more. And I think that belief is infectious from the coaching staff down to the players, down to the fan base, down to the people that are watching the games on social media and with us at number 38. So I thought that it was an absolutely phenomenal game for Colorado. They did what they were supposed to do. They cracked the AP top 25, and now they don't necessarily control their own destiny, but if they win out, they might have a chance to, sneak themselves into that Big 12 championship game.
Yeah, that's the part that's interesting, because when you look at the remaining games, obviously we can show them to you here. We have a Texas Tech, which is 5-3, at Utah 4-4, but that's in Boulder. Kansas 2-6, Oklahoma State 3-5. Utah and Kansas, by the way, were the consensus, ESPN, The Athletic, you name it, the consensus favorites in the Big 12. They have both absolutely cratered. Now, it doesn't mean that they're not dangerous, and it doesn't mean that on any given game they couldn't be dangerous. You cannot take them for granted. But let's hypothetically say, look, now they're bowl eligible. They're ranked 23rd in the country. The rankings, who cares? For that's nice, but for CU, the objective after being a 1-win team only 2 seasons ago was to get to a bowl this year. Mission accomplished there. And even if they were to lose out, Aniello, and go 6-6, the bowls that will be fighting to get the eyeballs onto the Colorado Buffaloes will be impressive. And they're not probably going to finish that way. Let's say they split these last 4. They get a mini bye week. They won't be back in action until the 9th of November when they're down in Lubbock to take on Texas Tech. Nice break for them. Obviously, we know that Travis Hunter's been dealing with some soreness, not that it slowed him down in any way, shape, or form. 9 catches, $153, 2 touchdowns, and oh, by the way, 4 passes on defense. But they can use the break. But let's say they even split it. Then they finish a season 8-4. Now, they're probably not ranked in that case, but you go from a 1-win team to an 8-win team, and with the talent that they've had, and everyone starts to realize, okay, wait a minute, maybe Deion Sanders is not the traditional kind of coach, but this is clearly working. Is it more? And I think the important part of this run is we know that Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter are phenomenal players. We know they're maybe the best tandem in the country. We know, however, that they also won't be back in Boulder next year. The wide receiver position, I think, can be handled. I think there's more than enough depth there already, quite frankly, when you're talking about some of the talent that the Buffs have, even if a couple others decide to go pro. I don't think you worry about cornerback. Deion Sanders is still the coach and head recruiter. I think you can get guys to play cornerback. You can't replace Travis Hunter, but I think the position can be filled. Quarterback's the one that intrigues me. Julian Lewis, one of the top prospects in the country, was in Boulder for this game. Obviously, probably had to like what he's seen. The question is about the quarterback position. If they get to 8 wins, 9 wins, 10 wins. I think if you get to 10, you're going to get a top prospect coming into Boulder as a quarterback. But how much at this point does that 8, 9, and 10 make a difference when you're talking about Shedeur Sanders' eventual replacement, which is, let's be honest, the only way the bus can continue to rise after this year?
Yeah, I think it definitely has an impact, but I also think just kind of knowing the way that some of these young guys think, winning is very important. Don't get me wrong, but it's also not everything these days. And I feel like college sports, just because of the NIL and the exposure. And as long as Coach Prime is going to be the head coach up there in Boulder, I mean, they're going to be the most attractive team, or one of, at least. I shouldn't say the most, right? You still have Ohio State, Georgia, all these big time programs, right? But the national attention, I mean, I don't think we've had a time release for Texas Tech yet, but they're going to be on national TV once again. They've been on national TV each and every game. The amount of exposure that you get when you play for Coach Prime in Colorado is just unlike anything that we've seen before in college football. And frankly, I think that has a lot of pull. The word clout is something that's thrown around a long time. I mean, you have the most clout you can possibly have is playing for Coach Prime if you're not playing for a Georgia or one of those big time programs. So I think regardless if they win 8, 9, 10 games, I think they'll be in a strong position to attract one of these 5 stars, specifically at the quarterback position. I saw that they had a 4-star wide receiver flip from, I believe, Arizona State to Colorado. So I think as long as Coach Prime is there, the coordinators are there, Jordan Seaton and the offensive line are there. To your point, the depth of talent at wide receiver, how could you not want to come to Boulder, man? It's one of the best settings in all of college football. Colorado as a state, obviously, we all know and love it. But I think also here's something to be said. There's something about being on that Coach Prime team and playing, I don't want to say the villain role, but knowing that you have a lot of people preying on your downfall, for lack of a
heel. I mean, aren't you? I mean, I think they embrace that. I think that the sure embrace that. You're the heel. You're the team that everybody wants to beat. And I mean, is that a bad place to be? It's what the Patriots were for 15 years. It's what the Lakers always are. It's what the Celtics are now. Who doesn't want to be? You either want to be, you want to be the face or you want to be the heel. Either one is generally pretty good for popularity. And the Buffs seem to be more than happy to play the heel.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, like I said, that's a big factor, I feel like, with a lot of these young kids is the social media exposure, the primetime TV exposure. A lot of people thrive off of that stuff. And also, just the ability to do something new and kind of unconventional, right? I mean, that was the big thing with Coach Prime. A lot of the haters and naysayers saying you can't just waltz into a Division I, Power 5, now Power 4 program and rebuild it overnight. Well, newsflash, Colorado is one of the top 25 teams in college football as of us recording this conversation. And if they continue to win, they'll go up and up and up. And like I said, maybe have a chance to clinch themselves a spot in the Big 12 championship game, and then we'll see what happens. But yeah, man, I just think the game is changing with the NIL, with the money, with the exposure. And just, I mean, look at Colorado's uniforms. Like those uniforms they wore on Saturday, the gray with the mountains on the sleeve. Those were insane. Just so clean. Like you're going to look good. You're going to feel good. You're going to play good when you play with Colorado and Coach Prime.
Yeah, I'm getting nitpicky when I'm actually worried about the uniforms, because at home I was like, hey, if you're going to do that, rock some golds or something, but who cares? The wins are the wins. Some of this, Aniello, it feels like, and I talked about this in the offseason when there were challenges to the way that Deion Sanders was doing it. And that's fair. This thing could still not work. There's all sorts of reasons. It's not a done deal. But last year, 5 of their 8 losses were 1-score games. And I think that got overlooked. Yep. I mentioned that a lot during the season and in the offseason, that it got overlooked to be like, well, they lost. They finished on a terrible skid, which they did. But 5 of those 8 were 1-score games. They weren't just getting the doors blown off of them. They were in games and they were losing close games for the most part. The old John Wooden, right, is first you lose big, then you lose small, then you win small, then you win big. Well, it feels like that's exactly what the Buffs have been doing. They were losing small, and now they're finding a way to start some of the season winning small, and now they're starting to win a little bit bigger. The confidence matters a lot, but it feels as if, to me, this is not a shock, because if you watched the way last season ended and looked at more than just the top-line record, you saw a lot of these signs that this team, with a couple tweaks, with a Jordan Seaton on the offensive line, with bringing in a little more strength on both parts of the line, with an addition like a Robert Livingston, a sort of interesting, more creative mind than Charles Kelly was last year, sort of a different approach, that all of a sudden it wouldn't be a shock. You didn't need to overturn this team to make a pretty big leap forward. They didn't do that. They sort of enhanced it, and now the leap continues to happen. Keep in mind, you are a 4 points away from this team being 7-1 and probably ranked about 15th in the country. The talent is there and it seems to be getting better, but the key to all of it seems to be the running game. We talk about Shedeur Sanders, we talk about Travis Hunter, and rightly so. But Shedeur Sanders takes fewer sacks. There's more guys running open. When the Buffs can run the football, and finally, it appears that Sanders and Shurmur, and I mean Shedeur and Pat Shurmur, seem to be okay with letting this team continue to grind away at the ground, even if the yards per carry aren't amazing, because they understand what it sets up later in the game. And that's how Shedeur Sanders can complete 80+% of his passes like he did on Saturday.
Yeah, man. I mean, I've told you, I say it on the SCO show all the time, run the darn ball. When Colorado makes a concerted effort to run the ball, I think it just opens up everything in the offense. And most importantly for Shedeur, 25 for 30, 323 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, a quarterback rating of 91.2. But most importantly, no interceptions. And that's something that you like to see, a clean game. But the running game was great, man. 128 total yards on the ground. Isaiah Gustav, 22 carries for 91. Dallin Hayden added 36 carries, or 36 yards on 10 carries, excuse me. And when you force the other team to at least respect the run, you got LaJohntay Wester, you got Travis Hunter, you've got Will Shepherd. I mean, you've got, it does feel a little bit from the passing dynamic with the quarterback, a little bit what Michael Penix had last year in Washington, where you had a lot of these pro-style wide receivers, a pro-style quarterback, and you're thriving because of that. And again, it gets overlooked, but I think Isaiah Gustav and Dallin Hayden as that 1-2 punch, Michael Welch doing his thing as well throughout the course of the season.
Welch has 3 touchdowns on the season.
It's huge. Yeah, it's absolutely huge.
Yeah, it's become a big part of it. And can you imagine if this team had a tight end? I mean, think if that gets recruited. Think of what you'd be able to do as a tight end. So I agree with you. I think when you look at the Buffs and you look at their setup, especially going forward, even in the post-Shedeur Sanders era, you get a good quarterback, whether that's a top recruit that you play as a freshman, or maybe we're looking at this the wrong way. Maybe the next quarterback for the Buffs, in fact, probably the next quarterback for the Buffs, is playing right now somewhere in college football. He's just not on Colorado. The transfer portal can bring that as well. And the Buffs could look that way too. Maybe it's Matt Sluka who had this fallout with UNLV. Maybe there's somebody else from even a bigger program that you have in mind. That may be a possibility. But now they have 4 games left. All of them, all of a sudden, seem winnable. How much for the program? There's always this concern that Deion Sanders is leaving, that Deion Sanders is going anywhere. I don't really buy it. And I guess, Aniello, I'll explain why, and I'd like to get your feedback on it. One, he's only 2 years into a 5-year deal. Not that that matters. There's always buyouts. But Deion Sanders has now already gotten the Buffs to be a top 25 team. As you've pointed out, and rightly so, quite frankly, they should probably, even if they're not going to be in the national championship discussion anytime soon, they should probably hover around that top 25 with regularity, given the talent they could bring in, right, for years to come. So if you're Deion Sanders, where are you going to go that gets you a better top 25 program now that you've already built one? And you've built one in your image at a university that is more than happy to let you do whatever you want. Remember, you want to interview with Deion Sanders, you don't talk to the athletic department. You have to talk to Deion Sanders people. He has his own video people creating videos on the sidelines at all times everywhere else. That's not CU personnel. That's his own. They let him do whatever he wants to do and accepts the fact that there might be a little bit of a circus environment with that. What regular top 25 program wants to cede all that power and give all that to Deion Sanders after 1 year of bowl-worthy play at the University of Colorado? The idea that he's going to hop somewhere doesn't make any sense. He's not a pro coach because he doesn't call plays on either side. So this whole idea that, oh, well, see, Deion's got a foot out the door. No, he doesn't, because I think even Deion Sanders understands he's in the best possible place to do exactly what he wants to do. Now, will he renegotiate? Because there were discussions that, the university offered him a raise and he turned it down. Well, of course he turned it down. And I explained why that happened, because he thought he could get his team to a bowl. Why sign a new extension before you got your team to a bowl when you can get your team to a bowl and say, well, now I want a new extension and it needs to be for X. He also knows the Buffs will give it to them. So I'm trying to figure out why everyone's panicked about, oh, see, Deion's got one foot out the door all the time. Why? He's at the top of the media world right now. He's the reigning Sports Illustrated Sportsman of the Year. Every team talks about him. Every game's been on national TV, as you pointed out. Where exactly can you go? He's done everything he wants to do. And in this case, why hop on someone else's train? This one, Deion Sanders can claim is all him. Yeah,
I think there's 2 points in questions that you need to kind of dissect. One, does Deion want to keep coaching if Shedeur and Travis and Shiloh aren't there? I think that's a very valid question to ask, is where's his heart at if it's not with
But
his
that's
guys,
not a
for lack
skip
of a
out
better
on
phrase.
CU. That's a, do you still just want to coach?
Exactly. And I think we all know the one school that makes somewhat sense for Deion to go to, and that would be his alma mater in Florida State. But, in some of the conversations that I've had.
They spurned him already because he wanted that gig. And they told him no thanks.
Yeah, and maybe he holds that grudge, but money talks. Like, here's the thing.
Sure.
I've had an opportunity to, have some conversations with people, not that fully understand Coach Prime's thinking. I don't think anybody thinks that or understands what he's thinking fully. But the one thing that we do know about Coach Prime and Deion Sanders as a person is he 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, is going to do what's best for Deion Sanders. And Florida State, I know we all want him still here in Colorado. They have resources that, frankly, I don't think Colorado can compete with. ACC, big boosters, tradition, on top of the fact that he was an alumni there and played his college football there. But they're 1-7. Those fans get uncomfortable down there. Look, I'm focused on the present right now. I think Coach Prime, I think it's either Colorado, Florida State, or not coach anymore. But to your point, you have so much freedom here. You have so much flexibility. And I also think, look, we were talking about that heel roll. Why do you like you kind of have this, you have it working here. And look, you would expect that if Deion jumped ship and went somewhere else, that he could probably build the program up similar to what he did here at Colorado.
You can't bring a lot of the guys that are here.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It
takes
takes a lot of TLC, a lot of energy. I mean, there's no saying that you can easily just, hey, Seating boys, like, let's come over here now to Florida State, right? I think as long as Colorado's able to give him what he's looking for, as long as his head is still in the coaching game, man, I don't feel like there's any reason to leave. Again, that's a separate conversation from not coaching Shedeur and Shiloh and Travis, because that's a real reason as well. But at the end of the day, man, why would you not want to be in Colorado? Why would you not want to see this thing through? You got to a bowl game. To your point, you can be a perennial top 25 ranked team with the amount of talent that you can bring in. It's a fun place to play. The Big 12, maybe a little bit more open than the ACC. I know it's kind of a down year for them, but I don't know. We'll have to cross that bridge when we get there. But all I know is right now, Colorado's in a great spot. Deion is fulfilling his promises. He's got Ms. Peggy to a bowl game, and they've got their eyes set on much, much more. If they win out, maybe a Kansas State loss, an Iowa State loss, a BYU loss, maybe Colorado sneaks into that Big 12 championship game. And even if they lose, if they win out, they might be, a candidate to be that at-large bid. Because I was talking about this with Troy Rank this morning at the Denver Post. If they can get to like 15 in the AP poll, first year of the college football playoff, right? Kind of a new dynamic in college football. To your point about there's going to be teams, arguing and beefing and fighting to get Colorado in their bowl game because of the attention. Do you get a little bit of grace if you're Colorado, if you're able to get within spitting distance of that top 12 team and maybe get a little bit of the benefit of the doubt to give that first iteration of the college football playoff some extra juice? I think there's a lot of options on the table for Colorado here, but they got to do their part and win out the rest of the way this season.
They would have to win out. And then all the Deion talk, as you brought up, the point is very simple. What Deion Sanders wants and what the Buffaloes want are aligned.
Yep.
That's wins. You got to get more wins. And so they'll have an opportunity after this little bye week to go ahead and get it at Texas Tech. Make sure you check out the SCO Show with Aniello, Piro, and Chase Howell every week. And, of course, every Buffs game, home and away, down at number 38. And Rhino, the best watch parties in town. Looking forward to the next one already. Thanks for the time, Aniello.
Yeah, always a pleasure, man. We'll have a new SCO Show coming up this week, during the bye week. We'll get some guests lined up, and be sure to also check out our friends over at Peckish. Phenomenal wings, phenomenal pizza up on the hill for your pre- and post-game needs, and obviously off I-25 in Bellevue. Love that place. I was there with Danny. We'll have to get you down there as well, Shawn. So Thanks for the time, and SCO Buffs, fellas.